and John. Donovan in
You know,
St.
you
Clair
just
County, Oceanside. Marty Keller here in Sacramento, Natomas.
yeah.
As we're entering Thanksgiving week this upcoming week. Much to be grateful for.
And boy, do I have a lot to be thankful for. Oh my God. It's like, it's got a whole new meaning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was sharing with you.
So, what do we talk about? Let's accountability is the process of knowing self. And that's the goal, as far as I'm concerned. It's in alignment with Gandhi's "Be the change you wish to see," and it's a practice of being, of accepting what is, and then moving, creating an intent to what you want,
It's also in
and
alignment
then
with
seeing what happens, then
it's
doing
also
it again.
it's also in alignment with Plato saying the unexamined life is not worth living.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, he makes people make statements like that and then put a period and then it's like, now what? It's like, how do you do that? What are the logistics of it? And
Right.
and in the intentional living accountability process, the four constants of relationship is the logistics of how to, and it explains, I guess, the why for. Where's all this coming from? How's it all working? How is it that I wake up in the morning intending to be a good person and in the evening think, holy cow, why did I do all that stuff? And it uncovers the mystery in a profound, simple way. Just telling the truth.
Yeah, my mischievous mind wants to say, and so what is the mystery? But I recognize that that's an answer that has to be reached by every person through his or her own work.
Well, I can give you like
Then you can
a
answer
hint. And yeah, well, I got it from Romans 7:15. To paraphrase it, why do I do that thing I don't want to do and know the thing I want to do and find myself doing the opposite? And that was a Bible verse that I was always like, I saw it as an indictment that I'm weak instead of a curiosity point or a search point to look how to answer that question. And the answer I came up with in this process of creating this intentional living is that anything I do because I believe it's a good idea, only I don't know where the motivation for that idea is coming from, which I've discovered is my subconscious pool of information that carries my wounding, my trauma, my vows, my perception of what happened, and then it was charged with keeping me safe with all that misinformation, and it's working perfectly. And if I don't address the subconscious trauma, wounding, hurt, it continues to manifest in my life with the idea, with the charge of keeping me safe. And without knowing it, I'm left with my rational brain to figure it out. And the reasonable place is blame and judgment. Blame other people or judge myself or vice versa. And that keeps me out of the truth of what happened to me and how this internal mechanism is working. So
I think that one of the powers of what you just said is, and it's a new insight. I don't know that we were talking about this a year ago, John. So maybe I didn't hear it. It's always possible. But the notion that the internal subconscious defense mechanism is A, always working perfectly, and B, is there to protect me.
Yes.
It helps me appreciate the tenacity with which getting triggered by the same things over and over again, having the same judgments leap to mind in certain situations, even though I those judgments are not serving me, not useful, helps me appreciate how all that happens. And it's led me to believe that my work is to befriend that rather than fight it, try to change it, because that's precisely what the little kid experienced, was people trying to change his reality. And so any attempt to do that 60 years later, 70 years later is gonna result in the same defense mechanism hunkering down and reinforcing itself against this threat. And so my only strategy is to befriend it, and of course to call upon the higher power to help me do that, because if I knew how to do it perfectly, I'd already have done it.
Yes.
And again, for me, that's what setting intentions is. It's telling the higher power precisely what it is I want now.
Right. And I want to offer, intentions will work without knowing any of this.
Right.
Yeah. They're the instigators of manifestation. And my intent when I first started recovery was to simply have a moment of peace of mind, where my critical mind shut off so that I could just take a breath and be okay. And that intent, without the awareness that I've gained since my recovery, my first day, my beginning, has manifested and given me the insight along with it to how this mechanism works. And now it's like Thanksgiving's here. One of the things I'm grateful for is having been graced with this information and process that is practical, that I get to offer to as many people who are interested. And that's exciting, and I'm very grateful. I'm very humbled and grateful.
Yeah, and the truth is that nowhere in the materials that you've shared, you put together, and in the accountability tree, in the 4 constants, in the obstacles, do you actually mention higher power? And that's a standard and critical element in 12 steps. But it's interesting that in the accountability practice, it's done sort of implicitly rather than explicitly.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I had no idea that, and yeah, you're right. Yeah, there's no reference to higher power.
Again, I say it's implicit because there is what shines through the whole accountability work is the unspoken belief that this stuff works, and that the working of it is anchored somewhere outside of my awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
as you said a minute ago, we don't need to know that in order for the process to work. We can reflect on it later, as you and I have certainly done. But what's more important is the relief. So when you started the beginnings of this, all you wanted was a moment of peace.
Right.
it didn't really matter how it happened. when when I'm
No.
when I'm upset, scared, I'm feeling that compulsive mind chatter, self-critical mind chatter. I don't care where the relief comes from. I just want it to stop. And if you can offer
Yeah.
me a process by which
Yeah.
I can get that to stop, um, I'm willing to just work that and then look back on it later and figure out what all the chemistry was, the spiritual chemistry involved. And the reason why that's important to me afterwards is because it helps me locate what we're doing in the much larger human inquiry that's been going on for millennia. Humans, since the beginning, have been trying to figure out what's on the other side of the reality that's brought to us by our senses, and what's going on with these demons in our mind. They called them demons in those days, and they thought they came from outside, but they had the exact same experience that we have with this demonic possession of crazy voices, fears, compulsive behaviors. So it's kind of fun to know that what we're doing here is stands on the shoulders of many, many people that have worked on the same stuff all over the globe, east and west, seeking to find something more powerful and something more transcendent. Again, my words, these aren't accountability words, folks, but to experience something that is to find and know that true self that you talked about at
Yes.
the beginning of the conversation.
Yeah. And it's found in of all places our feeling emotional body, which I have been admonished since birth to stay out of, and to second guess and to not rely on, and to even get afraid when I feel something, and move to some kind of avoidant behavior or activity that got me out of it. Now I welcome, embrace, revel in whatever feeling comes without judgment, and take a breath and see where it leads me. What's the information? Because emotions are simply information from sources beyond our five senses. And the feelings are the confirmation that I just received something like a tuning fork. So the feeling alerts me to an awareness that I can't get any other way except through my body. That feeds that information, whatever it is, and it's all concerning I don't know about all, but the majority of it concerning my safety in whatever process or situation I find myself. And I'm able to act out of that, which I now know I experience authenticity, genuineness, flow, and the capacity to be with people without blame or judgment and simply respond to what's happening in the moment without my idea of, without personalizing it, making it personal. And then I get to teach it, you and I get to discuss it, and hopefully people will listen and get curious and start their own search, wherever that may be, however that may be, whether it's intentional living or it's Gabor Mate or Joseph Campbell, whatever interests them is where they'll find what we found. And of course, I have a kind of a bias towards intentional living and its process because of the expediency of a new experience. And that's what counts, the experience of something different than I normally experience. And I want more. And we have the technique, the practice, we call it the accountability tree, paying attention, owning projections, moving towards our pain or discomfort, and then creating an intent. Today, I intend to with this information, I intend to.
It's almost impossible to overstate how radically, I don't want to say new, but how radically important.
Unprofound?
Well, no, it's profound. How profoundly important it is that you have emphasized the role of emotion in this, because it's so foreign, and I suspect it's as foreign in the East as it is in the West, to incorporate the body wisdom into the work.
Right.
I'll give you an example. I've been listening to Scott Peck's book called A World Waiting to Be Born. Scott Peck, who wrote The Road Less Traveled, 1979. This book was 1993, so another 14 years of experience. And he's talking about subconscious motivations and information that comes out in psychotherapy. And his therapeutic response is, okay, well, now that you know this is what's going on, you can just stop it. And I'm thinking to myself, it doesn't work that way.
No.
And this is, I mean, Scott Peck was, a pretty bright guy, and he was a professional psychiatrist. That was his training. And he understands many of the insights that we work with, but he just didn't have that piece. And he's telling us, as we're listening to him or reading his book, that all we need to do is bring to light the unconscious demons and compulsions, and once we see them, we can jettison them. And I'm like, wow, that's even a guy as bright as Peck. 1993. So what is that? A little over almost 30 years ago.
Oh my God.
Still not getting it. And it's the thing, we talked about this last week, and we've talked about it several times. Have I ever hurt somebody and said I won't do it again and did it anyway?
Yeah.
Or have I ever found myself on the wrong side of an argument and kept arguing it?
Yes.
Or
And the last one is, yeah, go ahead.
have I ever done something I knew I would regret and did it anyway?
Yep.
And it's like, there it is. That encapsulates our challenge and our opportunity.
Yes.
I could understand why I did that till the cows come home, but I'm still going to have the compulsion, because understanding doesn't address with loving compassion that defense mechanism hidden away in my subconscious that's producing this, because it's trying to keep me safe. And It has no choice but to keep me safe. This is not an option.
It's not an option. And embracing that mechanism that has caused the destruction and separation that I found myself in was counterintuitive. It didn't make any sense, and yet when I did, whether unknowingly stumbled upon it, and I did many times, walking into a 12-step group or doing a workshop where everybody there was like-minded and had no blame or judgment on me, I felt this new thing and wanted to keep it, wanted to understand the mechanism that was at work so that I could consciously, awarely seek it, ask for it, declare it. I don't know what to say now, to maintain it.
But the thing that the other radical innovation here, and they both work together, and you can't have one without the other. One is that the emotions lead me to this information. But number two, what's equally essential, it's not good enough just to even feel those feelings. how many 12-step meetings have I sat in and someone has shared something that's deeply shameful, or something that they feared if they told us that we would kick them out and we didn't. And that's powerful and that's useful. But then the innovation that you brought is to use that emotional soil to plant this new intention in.
Yes.
So that it begins to change. Otherwise, it's going to just continue being there. And I'm going to be sitting in a meeting crying about this a year from now.
Yes.
Because I haven't found a way to move it. I haven't found a way to help it start dissolving. Whatever the verbs are, I don't know that, after many years of doing this work, I still don't necessarily know if I can say what goes on. And that's why I've started talking about befriending this stuff more recently, because I think it's that in the 12-step, particularly adult children of alcoholics, we talk about reparenting. And that's, to me, that's what reparenting is. It's letting that little kid have his experience and treating him as a friend rather than somebody who needs to be reared.
Yeah, there's some clues in the sayings of the 12-step. One of them I'm remembering right now is that one of the promises of the program is you will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. The experience of the wounding I had, the pain that I went through, the abuse that I went through, is I haven't forgotten it. And yet it has morphed into this motivational energy to give me the wherewithal to stand in front of 50 men and tell them embrace your anger when they all want to get rid of their anger. And then I can stand there with that after having said that, and then hold that space for an opening or opportunity to explain what I just said. My wounding has actually become the gift that I'm giving back to my community. The pain of my wounding, the everything I went through, having healed through this process of owning my current reality, that's accountability. I am a bad dad, taking a breath, feeling that, and there's a constellation to that feeling. It's not just sadness. There's a constellation of thought, feeling, and energy. And at that high level awareness, I say it is my intent to be a loving, caring, nurturing father. It fuses with that information frequency, settles back down into my subconscious, and it has changed. It is now a different motivating energy for loving, caring, nurturing. And I may, for a while, have to watch that angry, resentful dad do what he does, and then breathe again and say, there he is. Okay, it is my intent, instead of beating myself up, which I used to do, say, okay, there it is again. Oh, it is my intent to be a loving, caring, nurturing father. I am a loving, caring, nurturing father. And after a while, I found myself being loving, caring, nurturing father. And I was like, it happened. I didn't do the rationale part of it. If this happens, then I will. If this happens, if they say this, I didn't do any of that. I just responded in a healthy way to my children, and that capacity to respond has grown, and I've nurtured it to where I'd like to share with you and everybody that's listening that my daughter came up to me the other day and said to me, Dad, I'm really getting to know you finally, and I love you. And it's like, how do you plan that? How do you control that? You don't. It just happens, and I'm just so grateful. Just so grateful. Your turn. Wow.
Well, I was thinking as you were sharing there about something I heard you say once, something to the effect of shifting an emotional energy requires an equal or greater emotion.
Yes.
And my sense is that when we do this work and we have that emotional release of coming to the truth, I'm a bad dad.
Yes.
Or the truth that I got to this week working with my therapist is love is dangerous.
Yes.
That energetic emotional release that comes from owning something that I've been avoiding telling the truth about, but secretly feared, is that powerful emotion, is more
Yes.
powerful than the emotion that was holding it in place.
Yes.
And that's why, even though it's still difficult, John, to move toward my pain, that's why moving toward the pain is still the essential ingredient here.
Mm-hmm.
Because releasing that through telling the truth about it creates an emotional energetic field that's way more powerful than that which worked to contain it. It's like a nuclear fission. It just releases all that energy. And
Yes.
now with that new energy release, I can literally create a new world. Because now
Yes.
this emotional energy is working for my greater good, which I create by my intention, and not merely keeping me safe as a little kid.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what happens. The evidence of that is when your daughter says, I'm finally getting to know you and I really love you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That energy, the energy that was keeping you from owning I'm a bad dad, got released. It changed your world, and therefore it's going to change how people around you feel. And it gave your daughter permission to get to know you in her own pace, through her own perspective, and tell you whatever it is she's going to tell you without you having to coerce,
Mm-hmm.
manipulate, force, any of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I'm finding in myself the the barrier, the obstacle itself in me was the need to be right, to be good, and to not let anybody see what was really going on internally in my private mind. And if they ever did find that out, I would be ostracized at least, and at worst, well, being ostracized is it. And I didn't want that. So having found that the ownership of this pattern or action that I had, which was abusive, um, without blame or judgment, just simply saying the truth. And all this material came to me incrementally. And what came up to me now is a workshop I did with people where they did see this aspect of myself that had become a pattern in me. And instead of judging me, they just simply looked at me and waited for me to say something and gently led me to, what do you want? And gentle, loving, empowering, nurturing, kind were the words that they used. And I believe they knew the power of these words behind the energy of the awareness and the safety that was created with this group. And there's many things, many experiences I've had that have led to the culmination of intentional living, accountability process. What do I want? And
So if you're open, I'd like you to talk a little bit about the newcomer, the person listening to this for the first time or just the first few times, the value of doing this work in a group setting. Like, can I do this by myself?
Um, I mean, Paul got knocked off a donkey by a bolt of lightning, but I don't know how to go through that process. Um, I wasn't able to do it by myself. I don't know of too many people who are able to do it by themselves. And for the newcomer, whatever you're feeling now, based on you listening to this podcast, is just take a breath and be with that. And then identify something that you don't have, that you want. For me, it was peace of mind. Um, and it evolved to a life of peace. But what is that thing that you long for that you're secretly holding inside yourself? And it could be confidence, it could be a sense of self love. And then um, when you recognize you don't have it, this mechanism opens up the way for you to receive it. It shifts your internal focus from whatever it was, from whatever the trauma was, you don't deserve it, I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, to an openness that will allow in information that you normally wouldn't hear. People will be saying it. People will be telling you directly just exactly what it is you want to live a life of peace. And it doesn't make any sense to this mechanism who is charged with either keeping you not enough, because that's how you survived, or unworthy, or a burden, or whatever it is you experienced as a child. So what is it that you want that you don't have? And create the intent. If it's self-confidence, it is my intent to be self-confident. And then notice what changes for you. What's different? How's your perception different? How's your feeling tone different? Do you sense you're quieter, more serene? What do you sense? And then pay attention to that. And we have, I don't know, 16 now of these podcasts that you can go back through with that intent. And you, even if you've heard them, you will hear something in there that is in direct alignment to what you say you want that you don't have. That's what I would say to a newcomer.
I'd like to add that there's the emotional energy field that we are living with in our subconscious, particularly that emotional energy field we call our defense mechanism, was created in a larger emotional energy field called family of origin. Mm-hmm. And so what I found is that working in accountability groups, started out as a men's group. We met weekly for years, and now our accountability groups meet twice weekly. It was moving in our accountability meeting last night to hear one of our members say, I'm not calling this a group anymore, I'm calling this a family, because I get in this group what I didn't get in my family of origin, and I'm choosing to accept what I get here for my own good. And I thought that was first of all, it was moving, and I felt her joy, and I thought it was accurate, because the group becomes the loving, unconditionally accepting family that we didn't have as little kids, and yet we wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so for me, the healing has occurred in this group setting, even though for a long time there were times I did not want to be there. there were times when I didn't say what I knew I should say, or I knew that if I said it, it would be healing, and I didn't say it anyway. And the group never said, how come you're not saying anything?
Right.
The group never said, what are you hiding? So there is just something alchemically positive about doing this work in a setting where people are going to just be happy for me to be willing to own whatever's going on, regardless of whether I want to tell them.
Yeah.
So there's a larger energy field that's, again, maybe that's related to it, what I was saying earlier about this energy, this emotional energy greater than this defensive energy.
Yeah. Yeah, and it can be the group itself.
Right.
Yeah, really cool. Yeah, and it's my experience that it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. St. Paul was knocked off his horse by a bolt of lightning, and I affirm that there are some people who do come to this information through acts of grace like that seem to have no direct connection to whatever reality might have been going on. And so I would never want to tell somebody, no, this is the only way. I'm not clear that there's an only way.
Well, I am. There's not. And this is the way that works for me. Along with all the other events in my life, along with all the other events in yours and whoever comes here, and those events are what makes this process grow and expand. Everything I present here, I got in group from other people. The awareness, how to put it, how to write it, to incorporate it, was in the process of group think. Even though I didn't, it wasn't like I'm doing this group think, I'm going to create something out of this, and something created out of it. It was created out of that. So. And it is my intent. Let me say this: it is my intent that it not become the thing. It's not the thing. Once it becomes the thing, then we need to throw it all out, just trash it, and start over. Because the thing creates stagnation, and I anticipate this information to grow by leaps and bounds with things that I can't even imagine right now. And I'm willing to accept it and be part of this groundswell, whatever you want to call it, into whatever wherever we're going. So I'm done.
Well, transformation has many fathers and mothers.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you. If it becomes the way, then unfortunately those kinds of rigidities then become an ally of our defense mechanisms.
Yes.
Yeah. That cunning, baffling, subtle way, because again, this is almost impossible to emphasize strongly enough. And maybe I'm saying this because it's really a recent discovery of my own, is that this defense mechanism is almost all powerful. And my insight this week was that when we were talking last night about the principle, one of the principles that we use in this work is I'm always getting what I want. And what had occurred to me is that desire is a fundamental dynamic of all living creatures, and the desire is to survive. That's the primary desire, and it's built into life itself. And so a living organism cannot desire to die. It cannot will itself to be dead. It can only fight to survive, even against long odds, This is going to happen to us as we face our individual deaths. We can have a philosophical resignation to letting go. Our bodies are going to probably go, well, I don't want any of that.
Right.
Because the desire to survive is built in. Well, that's what we're feeling with our defense mechanism. That's the strength that those little infants brought to surviving this emotional energy field. And so that's why we bless it. That's why we give thanks. I mean, it got me here. And although it's now confused, because it's up to me and God, my higher power, to let little Marty know that he's now safe. He's not in his family of origin anymore. He no longer has to be on point in the hunt, to be wary of threats and to see everything as a threat. He can actually relax and go back to being a little kid again. And that's the process that I'm engaged in here. It's like, I'm not mad at you, little guy. That's what you experienced. That's what you experienced from dad and mom. But that's not what's going on anymore.
Right.
And if you're not ready to relax your defenses, that's okay with me.
Yeah.
And
it's okay.
I'm going to tell you what I want. So I want love to be joy, peace, freedom, and community. And I want you to come along with me.
Yeah, and what I want. Yeah, and what I want is to walk in beauty, peace, and compassion with an open heart and open mind.
Yeah.
Well said, Marty. This for people who are in the 12-step group, adult children of alcoholics, the intentional living material is a loving parent practice, and the loving parent is the no blame, no judgment. Did I take the cookie out of the cookie jar? Well, my little kid says, hell no, I didn't take it. Somebody else did. Look at my other brother over there with the chocolate chips on his face. He's the one that did it. I didn't do it. And to simply say, yeah, I took a cookie, and feel safe and feel, yeah, I took the cookie, and wow, I don't know where I was going, but.
Well, what does the loving parent say to you when you took the cookie? When you own that you took the cookie?
Yeah, you shouldn't. Thou shalt not. Don't do that. You're selfish. You're all that stuff. No, the cookie tasted good. I like cookies. So yeah, all the shaming and blaming that went on. Spilled milk. I remember spilling milk on the dining room table. It was I was petrified. My grandson spilled something, and I just like, oops, oh, cool. Now we gotta let's get the rag. So hold on.
Oh, there's someone.
That was one of my coworkers. Anyway.
I think I've shared on this podcast before. I have a similar energy over spilling and knocking things over. And this morning, I pulled the creamer out of the refrigerator, and it slipped out of my hand and spilled all over the kitchen floor. And there was no time elapsed before I could feel my body seized with rage and anger.
Yeah.
Only now, it's like, oh, look, there's that rage and anger thing that always occurs when something like this happens. What do I want? Well, what I realized is I wanted somebody else to clean up the spilled milk.
Yeah.
And there wasn't anybody here to do it, so I did it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that stuff is powerful. Those reactive energies, I've been working with this energy, this spilled milk energy, for several years now, and it ain't diminishing in intensity. But what is happening is I'm changing my relationship with it.
Yes. Yeah, it's I have that startle effect, rage effect when I drop something on the counter, make a noise, or I don't move the glass in the right way, or I set it down too hard. And I'm learning to breathe and just keep moving and notice. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay, it's all right.
Right.
I'm safe.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and also to give myself permission to have that reaction. It's like, okay, there it is. No problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
The world's not coming to an end, I don't think.
No.
But that's what it felt like then. That mom or dad were going to be angry enough, and that sense of failure would come up through my gut, through my sternum, into my throat. It's like, oh my God, I just did something so wrong that I'm going to probably not survive this.
Right.
It's not logical. It's
the I'm not going to survive this was subconscious.
Right.
Child imaginations and results of getting either slapped, yelled at, or demeaned, diminished happen also, and your body perceived that as a life-death situation. Because if your parents gave up on you, you were a gunner. What would you do? You had no recourse.
Right. Well, and then I are stuck in this environment where we have no power to alter it.
Yeah.
And so all we can do is create that subconscious adaptation. It's like, what's the best I can get away with here? What can I do to not die?
Right.
And again, not, like you said, none of this is a conscious internal conversation. This stuff happened even before we had command of language.
Yeah. It's covered up with blame, judgment. I'm a dumbass. What's wrong with me? Pay attention. Pay attention.
Right. Yeah. For those of you who are new, if you don't know what your own self-judgment is, just notice whatever you say about yourself when some time of crisis shows up.
Yeah. Self-talk.
Or notice when somebody close to you, or as we also have talked about, some political figure does something that just enrages you, and then just notice what your judgment of that other person is.
Yeah. 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 Wow.
So we started this conversation by saying that accountability practice is about getting to know ourselves, and those are some of the things that we've avoided wanting to know about ourselves.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it hurt to acknowledge these things.
Yeah.
And so we learned to create substitutes. I learned to create substitutes for love instead of the authentic, genuine, warm, unconditional activity. I learned to settle for seconds, sloppy seconds, because it was better than nothing. And now I'm unwilling to settle for sloppy seconds.
Right. Yeah.
But I had to go through this process. I had to work through this. And, as you know, from your own experience, some of this is extremely painful. Part of it is because the defenses are so strong. To get through the defenses really requires some painful, energetic work.
And yeah, that is mitigated in the group when you experience yourself in a group situation and nobody's demeaning or diminishing. They're all loving and waiting and supporting this process.
How many times have you sat in a group and shared something that was difficult to share and had the response of, boy, I wish I could do that, or you're giving me the courage to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're seen as courageous instead of everything else you thought it would be.
Exactly.
or whatever. It's like, oh, cool.
Well, many times we haven't used this word today, but we've used it in the past, that this all is counterintuitive to the rational process of analysis,
Yeah.
and why understanding is not sufficient.
Right.
Necessary, but not sufficient.
The 12 step, one of the things they said in there, own your character defects. And it's like, and I lived a whole life of either avoiding or blaming or judging my character defects and trying not to be that. And as soon as I owned a defect, I found relief. It was like counterintuitive. It was exactly the opposite of what I was told to do, actually worked.
And what I have found is that the fact that I could do it one time didn't necessarily make it easier to do it the next time.
Right.
It took a lot of confronting fears, and I'll still sit in a meeting and I'll still have that, oh, I don't really want to own this tonight kind of energy. It's still
my
there.
experience of I forget what you call it, but the phrase, God will only give you what you can handle.
Right.
As this progressed for me, I was able to get really deep in a way that I couldn't have at first. Even though I said the same thing, there was a depth to it that I, thank God, was not able to feel, see, or touch. That at the time I did touch it, I had the foundation and what I needed to support me through some traumatic awarenesses, some devastating awarenesses about what happened to me and how it happened to me and who perpetrated the pain and the abuse. So, yeah.
But I hesitate to say it gets easier because it's actually something else. It gets more familiar. It gets more congenial.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's still tough, but I don't have the same level of fear and resistance to vulnerability that I've had. And now I can bring that power of the intention to deepen my appreciation for taking the next risk of being open and vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
noticing the resistance and not trying to fix it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. Yeah.
So it just deepens compassion and self-love as part of that self-knowledge. I'm moving to self-knowledge because I intend to love myself completely just the way I am, 24/7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It went from I'm a worthless piece of shit to I'm a creative being. I'm vital. I'm needed by the people around me. And that authenticity inside me is what is the gift, it's powerful.
Yeah. Well, we started our conversation by noting that Thanksgiving is coming up next week, and you started by mentioning some of the things for which you're grateful. And
Mm-hmm.
there's the word grace and gratitude come from the same root word. And it's all about feeling in my body, being in alignment with all of the deep, abiding truth of who I am. And just the gratitude comes from being in alignment.
Yes.
Just being willing to accept and be willing to ask for what I want when I have a hard time accepting it. And knowing that the answer always comes. It may not come in the form that my mind preordains, but that's okay. It's usually better.
Well, yeah, that's the good news. It doesn't come like I think it's going to come. It comes
Right.
as it is, and I get to enjoy that instead of what I thought it was.
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of like your daughter sharing what you shared. She said, like,
That's one of those moments that I live for. That it's like there it is. Yes,
Yep.
yes. I'm gonna continue to do this. Yes.
yeah, I intend to experience more of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So where do we go from here? I think we're pretty close to.
Yeah. So, any last minute thoughts as we wrap up?
Yeah, I'm gonna read what I said for the newcomer. Find out what you want that you don't have, and then create the intent to have whatever that is. And I'm referring to things for yourself, self-love, self-forgiveness, confidence, peace, tranquility, power, compassion. So, and it'll start you on a journey. And wow, yeah, that's it.
So, if you'd like to be on that journey with John or myself, I facilitate an accountability practice group along with a colleague of mine here in Sacramento, but it's on Zoom, and you're welcome to join us. The information on how to do that will be at the end of the podcast, or if you'd like to contact John directly, his contact information is also at the end of the podcast. We welcome hearing from you. We welcome hearing, is there something you'd like us to talk about or to explain better or to give other insights about? Please let us know that as well. Be happy to respond.
Very good.
So I'm grateful
Yeah.
for you, John, and I'm grateful for everything you taught me. And I'm looking forward to what you're going to teach me next time.
Yeah, me too.
Exactly.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Marty.
All right, brother. Have a good Thanksgiving. We'll see you on the other side.
Okay.